Tariffs on Canada have doubled. The Prime Minister has caved on counter tariffs on the digital services tax and on everything else, and 86,000 Canadians have lost their jobs as a result of his weakness. Surely the Prime Minister will finally keep his promise and come home with a win. What will it be?
The Honourable Minister responsible for Canada-U.S. trade.
Mr. Speaker, Canada is currently in the best position of any major trading ally of the United States. But we've said consistently, Mr. Speaker, that we have work to do with our American partners on sectoral tariffs. We have work to do in building an economy in North America that's in the interest of Canadian businesses and Canadian workers. That's exactly the conversation that the Prime Minister will have with the President. And, Mr. Speaker, was the Leader of the Opposition suggesting if the President of the United States invites you to go to Washington for a meeting and a working lunch, we should have just said no and hung the phone up?
Yeah. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
No, we're suggesting he actually keep his promise and negotiate a win. The Liberals' excuses are tripping over each other. Last week, the Prime Minister said the American tariffs on Canada are so bad that that's why we have the fastest shrinking economy in the G7, the second highest unemployment, $52 billion of net investment that has fled, 86,000 jobs that have been lost. And now they're saying that we have the best possible position. Which is it? Why is our economy so bad? Because of failed Liberal diplomacy on trade or bad economic management at home?
The Honourable Minister of Industry.
We never talk down our workers, we never talk down our industries, and we never talk down our economy. Let me talk to you about good news, Mr. Speaker. 500 jobs new at Itachi in Varennes, Quebec. 150 jobs in Alstom, Saint-Bruno, Quebec. 400 new jobs in Kitimat, Cedar, LNG. 500 new jobs at Ferrero, Brantford, Ontario. Who doesn't like Nutella? 460 jobs at Stem Cell Technologies in Burnaby. We'll continue to build Canada.
The Honourable Member for Saint-Jean. Mr. Speaker, we welcome the Prime Minister's visit to Washington. We asked for it, and it was high time. But now it's time for him to keep his election promise to boost the Quebec economy, because so far it's been concession after concession. He capitulated on the digital services tax. He has abandoned the global minimum tax for U.S. giants, and there's even more delays. And despite all of these concessions, not only is there no win, but Donald Trump has increased tariffs on our softwood. When will Quebec see some gains? The Honourable Minister responsible for Canada-U.S. trade. Mr. Speaker, as I said in an answer a few minutes ago, the Prime Minister will go to Washington later today for a working meeting at the invitation of the U.S. President in the Oval Office, and we'll be discussing issues that my Bloc colleague has mentioned. Obviously, we'll be discussing tariffs on softwood lumber. We'll be talking about other sectors, steel, aluminum, automobiles. These are exactly the discussions we're going to be having with our U.S. partners, Mr. Speaker, and we are going to continue to do the necessary work to get there. Thank you. The Honourable Member for Saint-Jean. Mr. Speaker, what the PM announced is that he'd be focused on discussions on steel tariffs. Steel is important. Quebec's forests are also important, as is aluminum. But the Prime Minister is not addressing these issues in his discussions, and the federal aid announced in August for the forestry industry is still not available. While he's in Washington, the BM must talk about aluminum and wood. But in the meantime, right here in Ottawa, could he at least release his own financial assistance for Quebec's forestry industry? The Honourable Minister of Industry. Mr. Speaker, we're always going to be here for our various industries in Canada and in Quebec in particular. We'll be here for steel workers, but also for aluminum and also for softwood lumber and the automotive sector. We'll be here for all of our workers. In fact, we have several types of funding that will be available for different sectors, and we're having several discussions with these sectors, and I'd be happy to work with my colleague, who I appreciate greatly to find solutions for softwood lumber. The honourable member for Pierre Boucher, Les Patriotes Berchères. Mr. Speaker, there is a public danger on our roads, low-cost drivers. We're mainly talking about immigrant truck drivers from Ontario who are exploited by companies to save costs and who drive heavy goods vehicles without qualifications. This is a cause of fatal accidents, abuse of vulnerable people, and illegal competition for truckers who follow the rules. Ottawa must launch an investigation, tighten the screws on these companies, prohibit temporary immigrants from incorporating. It's simple. There's 10 steps to take, but the federal government is looking the other way. When will it put an end to these discount drivers? The Honourable Minister of Employment and Jobs. Our government knows that truckers advance our economy and they deserve all the protection set out under the Labour Code. That's why we create an inspection team that is specialized, that has already done more than 100,000 inspections in this sector, and we are enforcing the law rigorously and working with the provinces to fight against false classifications so we can grant truckers the rights and advantages that they are entitled to.
For Regina Capel.
For those of us keeping score at home, the Prime Minister is 0 for 3. He promised to, and I quote, negotiate a win with Trump by July 21st. There still is no deal, and tariffs are actually higher. He promised it would be elbows up. Then he quietly dropped counter tariffs. And what did he get in return? Nothing. He promised Canada would have the fastest growing economy in the G7. Instead, it's the fastest shrinking. The 86,000 Canadians who have lost their jobs since he took office can't afford to wait for the Prime Minister to get through this slump. So, when he comes home from Washington this week, will he have a deal to eliminate all U.S. tariffs? Or is that promise just stuff he said during the election?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
I know it's Monday, but I already have good news for the week, Mr. Speaker. This morning, Mr. Speaker, Canadians understand that the world is changing and we need to adapt, Mr. Speaker, and that we have a generational opportunity to invest in Canada. This morning, Mr. Speaker, we announced a new capital formation budgeting framework, Mr. Speaker, in a new budget cycle. My colleagues will be happy because it's going to give them more clarity to see the budget expenditure. It's going to provide more predictability to provinces, territory, and business. And, Mr. Speaker, the best of all, it's going to allow more opportunities to align with the budget season. Mr. Speaker, let's build it.
The honourable member for Regina Capel.
Changing the date they tell Canadians how bad inflation and deficits is going to be isn't going to give comfort to anybody, Mr. Speaker. And they have to get their story straight. When they're asked about job losses here at home, they say it's all because of U.S. tariffs. When they're asked why the Prime Minister can't get a win on those tariffs, they say Canada already has the best deal and that those tariffs don't apply to most goods. Both of those excuses cannot be true at the same time. But here is what is true. The deficit here has doubled. Canada has the second highest unemployment in the G7. 86,000 people have lost their jobs. So what is the reason? His failed trade diplomacy abroad or his failed economic policies at home?
The Honourable Minister of Canada, responsible for Canada-US trade.
That's exactly it, Mr. Speaker. Thank you. Mr. Speaker, as I said earlier, we remember the Conservatives standing up in this House with manufactured indignation that the Prime Minister should be talking to the President every day. The Prime Minister should be in Washington. Why hasn't he been in Washington? Good news, Mr. Speaker. The Prime Minister and the President speak frequently. They are in touch on a whole series of international issues, the most important of which is obviously the Canadian economy, Canadian workers, and Canadian jobs. And that's why we're looking forward to discussing those exact issues in the Oval Office tomorrow with the President.
The Honourable Member for Hastings, Lennox and Addington, Tyandanaga.
Mr. Speaker, today is the day. As the Prime Minister heads to Washington, Canadians are closely watching. After a string of failures, including the doubling of tariffs on Canadian goods and repeated missed deadlines on his promises to negotiate a win for Canada, expectations couldn't be higher. For months, this Prime Minister has talked a big game, but delivered nothing when it mattered most. Mr. Speaker, will he finally keep his word and deliver a real win for Canada and secure the removal of U.S. tariffs?
The Honourable Minister of Industry.
We'll always stand up for workers, always stand up for our industries, and that's why also when it comes to different sectors that are being tariffed, we are there to support them. Again, this morning I was on the phone with the CEO of Dofasco, making sure that we're there for our steel workers. We were also working with Algoma Steel over the weekend, and you know what, Mr. Speaker? Good news, Irving Shipyard will be now buying steel from Algoma in Ontario. Mr. Speaker, this is what it is to build Canada strong.
The Honourable Member for Hastings, Lennox and Addington, Tyendinaga.
This government's message on the economy has been all over the place, Mr. Speaker. On one hand, they blame U.S. tariffs for Canadians' shrinking economy while boasting about the best trade deal with the U.S. The facts tell a different story. The deficit has doubled, second highest unemployment and fastest shrinking economy in the G7, $54 billion in investment fled, and 86,000 people out of work. Mr. Speaker, is this bleak reality the result of this Prime Minister's failed economic policies here at home, his failure to secure results abroad, or both?
Both. The Honourable Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Speaker, we're focused on building a very strong bilateral relationship, and I asked my colleague opposite, is it a failure when we support our auto industry? Is it a failure when we support steel? Is it a failure when we support aluminum, Mr. Speaker? We beg to differ. We are diversifying our trade routes. We are building strong bilateral relationships across the world, including with the United States, Mr. Speaker. And on this side of the House, we will always fight for Canada. Vive le Canada!
The Honourable Member for Bowmanville, Oshawa North.
Mr. Speaker, GM is eliminating thousands of jobs in Oshawa, and Stellantis has idled its Windsor plant while sending $10 billion to the United States. Families across Ontario are rightly concerned that the Prime Minister has no plan for Canadian auto and no plan for impacted workers. Will the Prime Minister bring home a deal for Canadian auto that eliminates U.S. tariffs?
The Honourable Minister of Industry.
Mr. Speaker, we've been actively engaged with all the CEOs of the D3, Stellantis, GM, and of course Ford, as well as with Honda and Toyota. And we've put in place a remission system to make sure that they would be able to continue their operation and create jobs. Now, we know that the auto sector is facing a challenge. That's why also we're engaging with Unifor and the different labor unions. And at the same time, we have now a very important fund of $5 billion to help these plants. We will be there for our auto sector.
Here, here. Well done.
The Honourable Member for Mégantic, l'Érable, Lotbinière. The wait is over. Tomorrow will be a big day for this Liberal Prime Minister. A big day because tomorrow the PN will finally keep his promise and negotiate a win for Canada. Tomorrow, tariffs on steel, aluminum, automobiles, and lumber will be eliminated because that's what the PM promised, right? We encouraged the PM to keep his promise to negotiate a win with the U.S. by July 21st, but he did not keep his promise. His grand strategy was to bow to the demands of the U.S. president, and tariffs have doubled. Tomorrow, will the PM finally keep his promise to negotiate a win and eliminate all U.S. tariffs on Canada? The Honourable Minister of Finance. Mr. Speaker, today is a great day, Mr. Speaker. Canadians understand that the world has changed. We have to adapt. And in terms of capital investment, well, we presented a new budget framework and updated the budgetary cycle. This is good news. It provides clarity to my colleagues. It allows them to see budgetary measures, and it also allows companies and provinces and associations that depend on federal funds to have greater clarity and opportunity for construction in this country. When we'll consider to celebrate, that will be building a strong Canada. The honourable member for Mégantic-L'Érable. Clarity, Mr. Speaker? Let's talk about that. The Liberal position on the economy isn't clear. On the one hand, they claim that the collapse of the economy, well, the worst in the G7, is due to tariffs. On the other hand, they say they've reached an excellent deal on tariffs. But what do the real figures say? The deficit has doubled. Canada is the G7 economy with the sharpest contraction and the second highest unemployment. $52 billion in net investment has fled the country, and 86,000 people have lost their jobs. Is the Prime Minister a poor diplomat, or a poor economist for Canada, or just quite simply bad? The Honourable Minister. I'm really sad when I hear what the Conservatives are saying. Canada has an enviable position in the G7. We have the lowest debt-to-GDP ratio, and one of the two G7 countries that has a AAA rating. But instead of talking down the Canadian economy, they should be proud of making a strong Canada, that we're building a strong Canada together and investing and making generational investment. We're working for Canada and Canadians and workers. The honourable member for Laurentides-Laballe. Mr. Speaker, the postal crisis is worsening, and this is fully the federal government's fault. On Friday, Canada Post submitted a new collective agreement offer to its workers, an offer that was worse than the previous one, which was rejected. Canada Post is taking advantage of the leverage given it to that Ottawa gave it to intimidate its employees and force them to back down. The minister keeps saying that both sides must negotiate, but by getting involved in this conflict, he has poisoned the discussions. Does he realize that it's his fault today if no one's receiving their mail today? The Honourable Minister. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. For us, Canada Post is a vital, essential institution that is part of our fabric that needs to be saved. Why? Because Canada Post is losing $10 million a day, and that Canadians have to pay for this just to maintain its operations. Now, I understand that's acceptable for the Bloc, but it is not for us. We need to modernize and transform Canada Post, and I have trust that both the management and the Union will be able to take the necessary action to save it. The honourable member for Laurentides-Laballe. Mr. Speaker, before the Liberals got involved, the mail was being delivered. And since they got involved, the Postal Service has been completely paralyzed. And it's the regions, the small businesses, the most vulnerable who are paying the price. Before the Liberals got involved, Canada Post was making serious offers. And now we've never been further from an agreement. And we don't see how the parties could reach one. This fiasco is the doing of the Liberal Party of Canada. Will the government acknowledge its full responsibility in the Canada Post crisis? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, I find this question absolutely surprising when I have these Bloc members that have been saying for years that Canada Post has to be modernized. We've been waiting for 20 months, and when the employees were striking last Christmas, they said that it was this action from this government was causing issues, and now we're used to the Bloc living in some type of parallel universe. They're not recognizing that they're losing $10 million a day. We need to modernize Canada Post, and we expect both parties to reach an agreement.
The honourable member for Kildonan and St. Paul.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister promised he would negotiate a win with President Trump and have a deal by July 21st, but there's been no win and there is no deal. Major U.S. tariffs on Canada have doubled, and the Prime Minister has repeatedly conceded to Americans' demands. Now his office is telling media that all steel and aluminum tariffs may be lifted tomorrow, finally. But what about the auto sector, Mr. Speaker? Thousands of jobs are at risk. GM is cutting. Stellantis has idled its Windsor plant and moved $10 billion of investment to the U.S. Will the Prime Minister's long promised, long overdue deal include an end to U.S. tariffs on Canadian autos? Yes or no?
The Honourable Minister of International Trade.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians elected this government to protect, build and transform our economy. We are protecting and supporting our industries through the new $5 billion strategic response fund, the $1 billion tariff relief initiative, which will give thousands of Canadian businesses financial support to access new global markets. We are building Canada with new nation-building projects, which will lead to thousands of new careers in skilled trades across Canada. And we are transforming our economy by unlocking new market opportunities so that Canadian businesses have preferential access to fast-growing regions around the world. Mr. Speaker, we are laser focused in building Canada strong.
The honourable member for Kildonan St. Paul.
The Prime Minister has been full of contradictions over this whole tariff ordeal, Mr. Speaker. He blames U.S. tariffs for shrinking the economy and job losses, but he also says Canada is getting a great deal with the U.S. on tariffs. But since the Prime Minister took office, the deficit has doubled. Canada has the fastest shrinking G7 economy with the second highest unemployment rate. $54 billion of net investment has left Canada, and 86,000 Canadians have lost their jobs. So when is the Prime Minister going to start delivering on his rhetoric? When are we going to get results, Mr. Speaker?
The Honourable Minister of Artificial Intelligence and Digital Innovation.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister gave 22 million Canadians a tax cut for families to put more money in their pocket. The Prime Minister is right now has a team negotiating with the United States to make sure that we protect Canada's position as the best country in the world with the lowest tariff rates. We are building the economy of the future together. I know the honourable member will support that.
The honourable member for Prince George, Peace River, Northern Rockies.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister promised to, quote, negotiate a win with President Trump by July 21st. Still no win and still no deal. Because this Prime Minister failed to negotiate a deal, U.S. tariffs on Canadian softwood have jumped to 35% this summer, and next week they'll jump to 45%. Since 2015 in BC, 29 mills have closed, and we've lost over 68,000 jobs. For the sake of all British Columbians, will the Prime Minister finally get a deal done and end U.S. tariffs on softwood lumber?
The Honourable Minister of Agriculture and Agri-Food.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, we're working extremely hard to open up new markets right across the country and around the world, Mr. Speaker. 96% of agriculture products are moving tariff-free across the border into the U.S. We're proud of that, Mr. Speaker. We're going to stand alongside our farmers. We signed a new bilateral agreement with Indonesia, Mr. Speaker, and we're continuing to work hard. Next week, Mr. Speaker, when a lot of people from this House will be put their feet up, we'll be in Mexico working on more deals. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for North Island, Powell River.
The Prime Minister promised to, quote, negotiate a win with President Trump. He promised a deal by July 21st. Well, it's October, still no deal, still no win. Instead, tariffs on Canada have doubled. But now we hear the PMO is reportedly telling media that tomorrow all steel and aluminum tariffs will be lifted. But what about lumber? U.S. lumber tariffs on Canada have increased by more than 100%. Jobs have been lost. Mills have been closed. Will the Prime Minister's long overdue deal tomorrow include an end to tariffs on Canada's incredible forest industry? Yes or no?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, we've been clear that U.S. tariffs on Canadian softwood lumber are absolutely unjustified, and we are working at every level to resolve the softwood lumber dispute. To date, we have announced more than $50 million in income supports for more workers, $700 million in loan guarantees, and $500 million in capital investments to make the industry more competitive and retool it for the future, including to build more Canadian homes. We will buy Canadian, we are ready to build, and we are changing federal procurement processes to require companies contracting with the federal government to procure Canadian lumber. This is how we build the strongest economy in the G7. That is how we win a trade war, one we did not ask for, but one we will not back down from.
The honourable member for North Island, Powell River.
I guess that's a no, Mr. Speaker. You know, the Prime Minister promised elbows up during the last election, said so far on Vancouver Island, all we've had are job losses, mill closures, and higher prices for virtually every good in our society. $54 billion has fled the country. 86,000 people have lost their jobs, and the entire coastal forest industry right now is on the brink of total collapse. Will the Prime Minister demand the lifting of tariffs on Canadian lumber and any trade deal with the United States, or or is he preparing to throw our forestry workers and incredible forestry communities under the bus?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, we will always be there for forest workers, and that's why we have invested so heavily in them and will continue to do so. This trade war came to our shores, but we are going to finish it by being strong supporters of industry, strong supporters of Canadian workers, and making sure we get the job done.
Hear, hear.
The Honourable Member for Carleton.
Monsieur le Président, les Canadiens.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians throughout the country, including those in my riding of Carleton, are watching the generational investment made by our government in the Canadian Armed Forces. At a time when Canada is diversifying its trade relationships and is increasing its military presence throughout the world, we know that that is having a positive impact on our home industries. Can the Minister tell the House about our recent investments in national defence? The Honourable Minister of National Defence. I'd like to congratulate my colleague, Mr. Speaker. Indeed, we are acting quickly to meet the needs of our Canadian Armed Forces. Last week, we announced the creation of the new Defence Investment Agency in order to speed up defence procurement, and today we are debating Bill C-11, which seeks to modernize the military justice system in order to better support our armed forces. Mr. Speaker, this is an extremely serious matter, and on this side of the House, we are taking rapid action.
The Honourable Member for Oxford.
The Liberal bill has allowed repeat violent offenders to terrorize our communities. And despite promising decisive action, the Prime Minister continues to keep his Liberal bill in place, causing more chaos on our streets. Our Jail Not Bail Act has the support of police chiefs, unions, victim advocacy groups, survivors, and their loved ones. And MPs will vote today to fast-track that bill in this chamber, and Canadians are watching. So what will it take? How many lives have to be lost before this Prime Minister puts aside his partisanship and scraps Liberal bail?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Combating Crime.
Mr. Speaker, we completely agree that violent and repeat offenders should not be released back into our communities on bail. While we appreciate the opposition's attempt with their motion, it's a bit weak, Mr. Speaker. It misses the mark on key changes that need to be implemented and in order to keep a wide array of criminals behind bars. Mr. Speaker, we'll be introducing comprehensive bail and sentencing reforms that have been created in consultation with law enforcement, Crown lawyers, and provincial and territorial governments. Mr. Speaker, our bill that's coming up is a tough on-crime bill.
The Honourable Member for Oxford.
Speaker, the Liberals keep telling Canadians to be patient. Say that to the families of the loved ones that have lost their children, their grandchildren on the streets of Canada. Every day the Liberals delay, 1,600 more violent crimes happen in our country. The Woodstock TD robbery, suspect was out on bail. The murder of Constable Perchella, the suspect was out on bail. The murder of Tory Dunn, the offender was out on bail. Enough is enough. It's time to scrap Liberal bail. So if the Prime Minister won't scrap Liberal bail, will he at least do the decent thing? Show some compassion and get out of the way.
The Honourable Secretary of State for Combating Crime.
Mr. Speaker, like I said, violent and repeat offenders should not be released on bail.
Hear, hear.
We agree with this. That is why we're bringing forward comprehensive bail reform. We want to get it right, Mr. Speaker. We don't want to pass something that is weak and lets violent offenders back out onto our streets.
Hear, hear. The Honourable Member for Brantford, Brant South, Six Nations.
Liberal bail laws have unleashed a bloodbath of violent crime across this country. C-75, the catch and release Liberal bail law, is the problem. The Prime Minister has kept Liberal bail in place, causing more bloodshed over his last 6 months. Conservatives listened to police and to victims and drafted a bill to end Liberal bail and restore safe streets. The vote is today. Victims and frontline officers are watching this government. Will the Prime Minister stop protecting criminals, put politics aside, and vote to scrap the Liberal bail?
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Mr.
Speaker, listening to the member's question, it's clear there are several deficiencies with the approach that he's put forward. First, Bill C-75 actually makes it harder for offenders who've been charged with intimate partner violence to be released on bail. He would make it easier to have them get out into our communities. Second, Mr. Speaker, he claims to have engaged with law enforcement in the formation of this bill. When you actually look at the measures they're proposing to put forward, it barely scratches the surface of what law enforcement has told us in the first few minutes of conversations. We have a comprehensive set of reforms coming to the bail system that will be designed to make communities safer. I hope in the next number of weeks when this bill comes forward, Conservatives will finally do something in support.
The honourable member for Brantford, Brant South, Six Nations.
Let's look at some examples of government in action. In Vancouver, police had to arrest the same 40 offenders 6,000 times in 1 year. In Peel, police arrested 18 suspects for home invasions and carjackings. Half were already released on bail. In Saskatchewan, Miles Sanderson was out on release after 59 convictions when he murdered 11 people. Premiers, police chiefs, mayors, victim groups, all begging this government for action. If the Prime Minister refuses to vote to scrap the Liberal bail, will he get out of the way so Conservatives can do it themselves?
Good question. The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Mr. Speaker, with great respect to my honourable colleague, we have one point of agreement that we need to take action and change Canada's laws to make it harder for violent offenders to be released into our communities. The good news, Mr. Speaker, is the legislation we're putting forward will do exactly that. But what I can't accept is a half-baked idea from the Conservative Party, who seems to have taken something that they've copied and pasted off an American bumper sticker to adopt laws in this country. Mr. Speaker, in the last federal election campaign, sovereignty was at the core of that electoral choice that Canadians made. And I can tell you, constituents in my riding, and I expect in the members opposite, want Canadian laws to be made in Canada.
The honourable member for Parkland.
Well, Mr. Speaker, these Liberals keep talking about the things that they will do. Well, they can do something today and vote for our motion for jail, not bail. The Liberals' criminal experiments have unleashed a wave of violence on our street. Police and victims agree C-75 is the problem. This Prime Minister talks tough on crime, but he's had 6 months and he's done nothing. Conservatives are listening, and that's why we put our jail, not bail, up for vote today. This country is watching this vote. When will the Liberals finally get on board and stop giving the criminals a free pass?
The Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, if the party opposite wants to be serious on crime, they need to support legislation that's in front of the House that will advance criminal justice reform, Mr. Speaker. We have C-2 that is before the House, Mr. Speaker, in which the opposition is unwilling to support. This is a measure that was asked by law enforcement. It will strengthen our border. It will make sure that our country is safer, Mr. Speaker. There's no doublespeak here, because at this point, on this side of the aisle, Mr. Speaker, we will bring forward bail reform, and we will ensure that it's safe, and it will ensure that it's charter compliant.
Honourable member for Parkland.
Mr. Speaker, I can't believe my ears. That minister just said that we need to support legislation before this House. They have yet to put forward a bail reform bill. And we put forward a bill today. It's time for them to support it. Sadly, there are too many countless examples of the deadly failures of these Liberals' criminal experiments. In July, a young mother was killed in broad daylight by her ex-husband with a hammer. This brutal attack happened mere hours after he was convicted of assaulting her. He was on bail and he was released after he was convicted. It's time for the Liberals to end these soft on crime experiments. It's time for them to put their blind partisanship aside, stand with us, pass this bill, jail.
The Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, we have legislation in front of this House. Government.
Come on!
Legislation C-2 that the party opposite could support and pass. This is very important items that the law enforcement has asked, Mr. Speaker. Throughout this summer, I had the opportunity to meet with police chiefs, police associations, others in law enforcement who have asked for very important tools so that they could do their job better. They could make sure that criminals are off their street, Mr. Speaker. So if the party opposite is serious about criminal justice reform, it will start by supporting the C-2.
The honourable member for Edmonton-Griesbach.
Mr. Speaker, Liberal bail has caused a bloodbath of crime in communities nationwide. The culprit is Bill C-75, the catch and release liberal bail law. The Prime Minister has kept that awful law in place over his last 6 months in power. But Conservatives have taken advice from police and victims to draft a new bill to scrap liberal bail and bring peace to our streets. The House votes on it today. Victims and police are watching. So will the Prime Minister put partisanship aside and vote to scrap liberal bail?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Combating Crime.
Mr. Speaker, we spent this summer consulting with experts across this country to come up with a comprehensive plan to address criminality in our country, Mr. Speaker. Quite frankly, their bill is weak, and our bill will address everything that is in their bill and much more. It'll keep a whole wide array of criminals behind bars, Mr. Speaker, but we have C2 in front of this House right now, too, and C2 addresses many cases such as murder, extortion, child exploitation, and sextortion, Mr. Speaker. Many of our vulnerable children have committed suicide in this country, Mr. Speaker, and the Conservatives, I asked
The Honourable Member for Charlebourg-Haute-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, I'm not sure if you're familiar with Gabi Renault. She was a woman who was killed in Saint-Jérôme 4 weeks ago by a man who had been arrested 30 times, had broken bail conditions 16 times. All of that because of liberal bail. But the good news is that my colleague for Oxford, with Bill C-242, in consultation with police officers and victims groups, that bill is ready to be passed. Will the Prime Minister tell his government, his members, to vote in favour after question period today? Yes or no? The Honourable Minister of Justice. Mr. Speaker, we need to change Canadian legislation to strengthen the bail system. But at the same time, Mr. Speaker, we recognize that the bill that's before us today has many problems.
Not going to take a bill that is completely deficient, that does not scratch the surface of what law enforcement, provinces and territories and experts have informed us on over the last few months. Our job is not to pander with slogans, but to advance solutions to help Canadians save. That is what the government legislation is going to do.
The Honourable Member for Charlebourg-Haute-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, the gaps have been caused by the Liberals over the last decade. Bills like C-83, like C-75 have all led to crime going up in Canada. A bill has been tabled here in this House, a bill that is based on consultations with all stakeholders that will make our streets safer to help women avoid the fate that struck Gabi Renault. Will this government vote in favour of the bill today, yes or no? The Honourable Minister of Justice.
My honourable colleague's argument is self-defeating. He suggests that one of the laws to blame when it comes to bail should be repealed, when in fact that would make it easier for someone charged with intimate partner violence to be released on bail. If you're going to be critical of a piece of legislation on the floor of the House of Commons, it is a good idea to read it first. Mr. Speaker, we have spent months engaging with law enforcement, with provincial and territorial counterparts, with constitutional experts, with those who advocate on behalf of victims to ensure that we are moving forward with policies that are actually going to keep Canada safe. People want solutions, not slogans, and that's what we'll deliver.
The Honourable Député d'Honoré Mercier.
The Honourable Member for Honoré Mercier. Mr. Speaker, too many women face obstacles when they try to access sexual and reproductive health services, whether it be because of lack of information, because of discrimination, or geographical isolation. We need to make more of an effort to develop resources, increase awareness, and provide logistical support. Can the Minister of Health tell us what the government is doing to increase the availability and accessibility of sexual and reproductive health information and services? The Honourable Minister of Health. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank the member for his question. Everyone deserves to be able to have access to sexual and reproductive health services, regardless of when or of where they live. That's why last week I was so happy to announce that we will be offering funding to groups like the Disabled Women's Network of Canada the Canadian Association of Community Health Centres and other organizations, which are offering community solutions to broaden access to sexual and reproductive health services. This will help many more Canadian men and women to fully participate in the job market.
Kamloops, Thompson, Nicola.
Mr. Speaker, Liberal policies, Liberal bail have caused a bloodbath of crime throughout Canada. So much of this comes back to the Liberal bail provisions of Bill C-75. But Canadians should not have fear, Mr. Speaker, because we have a jail, not bail bill that we will be voting on today. In fact, Peel, Halton, and minutes ago, the Toronto Police Association endorsed our jail, not bail bill. So, when the Justice Minister says our bill is sufficient, will he tell those police associations they're wrong? Yes or no?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Combating Crime.
Mr. Speaker, like I've said before, our comprehensive legislation that is just coming out.
Well, we're going to take that one from the top. I suppose I could turn up the volume a little bit more, but I think I'd like to try to keep it at this level and see if we can respect that. So, the Secretary of State for Combating Crime.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Like I said, we spent this summer consulting with police chiefs across the country, associations. The legislation, the comprehensive legislation that will be coming out in a few weeks is recommended by police agencies across this country, Mr. Speaker. It contains a lot more than the piece of legislation that is being offered by the Conservatives, Mr. Speaker. Quite frankly, their piece of legislation is weak. It doesn't address all aspects of crime. Everything that Canadians are looking for will be addressed in our upcoming bill.
Member for Kamloops, Thompson, Nicola.
Well, Mr. Speaker, if the legislation is so weak, why are the Peel, Halton, and minutes ago Toronto Police Associations endorsing our legislation, Mr. Speaker? Mr. Speaker, the reality is that bail is out of control. In Kelowna, 15 people were responsible for 1,335 police calls. One person responsible for 223, alleged to violate bail 31 times, not showing up for court 32 times. These Liberals tell us what they're going to do. What have they done the last 10 years? Diddly poo. Will they pass our bill? Yes or no?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Combating Crime.
Mr. Speaker, you know what else has been endorsed by police across this country? C2 and our Stronger Borders Bill. Every police agency across this country has endorsed that piece of legislation. Do you know, Mr. Speaker, Canada is the only country amongst the G7 and our Five Eyes that does not have a lawful access legislation, Mr. Speaker. This is so important in order to protect our children that are being exploited online, Mr. Speaker. Will the Conservatives stop being concerned about the privacy of criminals?
Here. Good job. The Honourable Member for Brampton West.
Mr. Speaker, Liberal bill has caused a bloodbath of crime in communities across this country. Just last week, a man was stabbed on a bus in Brampton by a criminal out on bail. Over his last 6 months in power, the Prime Minister has kept Liberal Bill C-75 in place, causing more bloodshed. Conservatives have taken police and victims' advice to draft a bill that will scrap Liberal Bill and bring peace on our streets. The House vote is today. Victims and police are watching us. Will the Prime Minister do the right thing and vote to scrap the Liberal Bill today?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Combating Crime.
Mr. Speaker, like I've already said, our bill is comprehensive and is much stronger than the Conservative bill. I believe the Conservatives will be happy to see it in the coming days. It addresses all their issues and much, much more. Mr. Speaker, we have been a tough on crime government, since we've taken office, Mr. Speaker, our top priority has been to address these issues with C2, with listing the Bishnoi gang as a terrorist organization, Mr. Speaker. We've been able to crack down on criminals across this country, and I want to thank law enforcement for all of the arrests they've been making and the many, many sentences.
The honourable member for Sackville, Bedford, Preston.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, all members of the House agree on the need to keep our communities and streets safe. A key part of that commitment is freeing Canadians from the scourge of gun violence, an issue our government is committed to addressing. To that end, can the Minister for Public Safety explain how this critical work is being advanced through the assault-style firearm compensation program? Thank you.
The Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, let me thank the member for Sackville, Bedford, Preston for his very important question. I was pleased to say, Mr. Speaker, last Monday on October the 1st, the pilot program.
I mean, there's a lot of noise coming from one of the corners around here. I won't name which corner. The Honourable Minister from the top.
You're being recorded. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Let me thank the honourable member for Sackville, Bedford, Preston for this very important question. And let me advise him that on October the 1st, we launched the firearm compensation program in Cape Breton, Mr. Speaker. Already we have people signing up, Mr. Speaker, who are registering and ensuring that they're eligible for the compensation. We look forward to the expansion of this program across Canada. In addition, we're working to secure the border, including Bill C2, $1.3 billion investments at our border. We will have comprehensive bail as well as other reforms coming forward, Mr. Speaker. We will keep Canadian.
The honourable member for Chicoutimi-Le-Fjord. Mr. Speaker, the aluminum sector in the Saguenay is suffering, especially since this new Liberal Prime Minister has been in power. Tomorrow he'll be meeting President Trump. When he was trying to get elected, the Prime Minister told Canadians that he was the man of the hour and that he would negotiate with the Americans. But today the tariffs have doubled. Will the Prime Minister finally keep his promise of negotiating a good agreement that gets rid of these tariffs? The Honourable Minister of Finance. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank my colleague for this excellent question. He knows that we have always invested in the aluminum sector. The aluminum sector is an extremely important strategic sector, just like steel, forestry, and the auto sector. We've even met to talk about it, so he knows that on this side of the House, we will always be here to support the workers in our aluminum sector and the entire sector, in fact, and we will always stand up for Canada's interests.
Honourable member for Courtenay Alberni.
Mr. Speaker, coastal First Nations oppose crude oil projects through their territories and strongly support the tanker moratorium protecting British Columbia's Great Bear Rainforest. They have built a sustainable economy that creates jobs, supports communities, and safeguards globally significant ecosystems. Premier Smith's pipeline push ignores their Indigenous rights. When introducing Bill C5, the Prime Minister pledged no province or Indigenous group would be forced into unwanted projects. Will this government uphold that promise?
The Honourable Minister of the Environment and Climate Change.
Mr. Speaker, the Build Canada Act has very strong provisions in it to make sure there's Indigenous consultation. And it also has strong provisions to make sure that what we're doing is building a strong Canada for the future. We will leave it that the Premier from British Columbia and the Premier from Alberta can have those conversations as to the path forward, but we will be making sure that we are building a strong Canada for the future.
You're here.
And that concludes question period for today.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, that's something everyone can enjoy.
It being
for 6 minutes, please go ahead.
3:11.
Good morning, Commissioner. I have questions for you about legislation Bill C8. There have been a pretty broad chorus of voices that are concerned about the sweeping and secret powers that cabinet ministers would have over the internet access and telephone access for individual Canadians the power to secret powers to seize private data without warrant and conceal those actions from the public. So would secret orders to disable an individual's telecommunications access be inconsistent with the principles of the Privacy Act, and if so, why, sir?
Thank you for the question. So in the last Parliament, I appeared on Bill C-26 and talked about some of these issues when legislation aims at giving more power to the state to protect infrastructure and to disable and to take certain steps. And as Commissioner, I've always stated that privacy is not an obstacle to public interest. It's not an obstacle to national security or to strong economy. But we need to make sure that by protecting national security, we're not doing so at the expense of privacy. And so in cases like this, what I said to the committee was that we needed to put in the legislation a criterion on necessity and proportionality, making sure that the exercise of those powers is going to be tested from a privacy perspective to say, is this necessary? Does it achieve the result for which it's been put in place? And is it proportional? So that's the substantive element. And you mentioned secrecy. In certain instances, secrecy is necessary, but it should be challenged, and there should be ways for some reports to be made to appropriate authorities. It doesn't have to be necessarily to make it public, but reports to my office, reports to a national committee of parliamentarians, or other means.
And so in your review of this proposed legislation, does it check all of those boxes?
Well, I will be waiting to testify on C8 when called, and we're reviewing that very, very carefully. But there is, I think, more to be done in terms of the reporting mechanism and the necessity and proportionality.
I would say for sure that there's more to be done. This bill proposes to let the government secretly cut a Canadian's phone or internet service, and the cabinet minister would have the power to issue the order, would prohibit that the existence of the order to cut that service prohibit its revelation, and that the order even existed, which would, of course, eliminate the ability for anyone, including you in your role as commissioner, to have any oversight whatsoever. Isn't this a direct circumvention of the act over which your mandate is concerned?
Well, that's why, again, to make sure that we're not making it more difficult to raise rights and to protect privacy, reporting to appropriate authority, even if done in a confidential manner, is something that I recommend. Making sure that there is ability for my office to be aware of it, to be able to raise questions. In some instances, a report to Parliament is appropriate. A report to committee is appropriate. And so this should be part of the discussion and the assessment to say, what type of reporting is there? Is it enough? But certainly, in my view, there should be confidential reporting to some authority who would be able to raise questions about it.
Currently, that doesn't exist in the legislation. What you're describing, what you describe as essential, is not included in the legislation. Bill C-8 lets a minister compel data without judicial oversight. So this also creates a risk of a parallel system where Canadians' personal information, their personal data, can be seized in secret, again, with no redress by individual Canadians or by your office. Isn't this antithetical to the type of system that your office has been designed to protect?
Well, if my office is not aware of something happening, of course, we can't raise questions about it. We can't assist Canadians. And so I think, again, there will be instances where making something known to the public may not be appropriate, but we should challenge a claim to absolute secrecy. We should make sure that there's appropriate reporting to the appropriate authorities and that there is an appropriate means to raise questions.
Right. Of course, if your office doesn't know that the law is being broken, then I guess the government's contention is that they haven't broken the law. Do you think that a vague standard like, quote, any threat which is the term used in the legislation, undermines safeguards in the Privacy Act, such as the requirement that collection or use must be necessary, proportionate, and authorized by law?
Well, we've advocated in the past, and as I say, I expect to be called specifically on this bill to address it, but as a general proposition, I recommend a necessity and proportionality to be in the legislation, made explicit, so that there's a strong test. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Barron. Mr. Dufresne, Monsieur Sarr.
Oh, yeah. Second round. Mr. Cooper, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner, the charter jurisprudence based upon the Supreme Court's 2014 Spencer decision and the more recent 2024 Bykovitz decision is clear. Access to personal data requires prior judicial authorization, correct?
Yes, those were the findings of the court.
Okay, and looking at the Bykovitz decision, the court confirmed that subscriber data is, quote, the key to unlocking a person's identity and online activity, and based upon that, the court affirmed that even IP addresses attract a reasonable expectation of privacy and therefore cannot be obtained without a warrant, correct?
Well, that was a finding in that case. Again, the argument was this information is not specific enough, so we can ask and obtain it. And in the court really found that we can draw so much about individuals with these types of data points, and so in that case found that a warrant was required.
Okay, well, thank you for that. And to satisfy, in order to obtain a warrant or a production order in this type of context, the standard that would have to be met is reasonable belief. Is that correct?
Reasonable belief, there's some instances where under the law it will be reasonable suspicion. So I think that is where some of my recommendations are, to the effect that when we're talking about sensitive information, it should be reasonable belief. We should have a more rigorous standard to assess that.
Okay. So with that in mind, I want to ask you some questions about parts 14 and 15 of the Liberal government's Bill C-2, buried within the so-called Strong Borders Act, are sweeping new powers to government agencies to demand Internet subscriber data. For example, Section 487.0121 of the Criminal Code, the proposed section, would allow police and CSIS officers to demand customer information from any company providing public services, including banks, telecoms, and social media, on a mere suspicion without judicial authorization. Have I got that right?
Right.
Okay. So in terms of understanding the implications of what that section would enable law enforcement to do. Law enforcement, for example, could compel a bank without a warrant to reveal whether an individual is a client of a bank, how long they've been a client for, where they have accessed banking services, and provide the name of any person who has provided services to that individual. Is that fair?
I don't have the section in front of me, but that sounds right.
And it would provide warrantless access to subscriber data, including IP addresses.
Again,
right?
Sounds right.
That sounds right. And so it would seem to me that completely eviscerates the standards set out in Spencer and in Bykovitz, right?
Well, it modifies it. Parliament can do that. The question is it necessary and appropriate? And so when we look at this, we ask questions about why is it suspicion and not belief? Is it rigorous enough? Is there enough reporting? These types of questions.
Yeah, but it raises serious privacy implications, does it not?
It has privacy implications. You're making it easier to obtain the data.
And do you have any concerns about that?
Well, again, I'm giving in advance the testimony that I'm going to be given to the committee when called on that specific bill. But certainly, once what we've seen so far is we would have preference in it being reasonable belief as opposed to reasonable suspicion.
There is a new way forward on budgeting. The global economy has changed, as I said, and Canada must change with it. We're responding with generational investment that build bigger and better at home. The urgency of this moment demands new ways of budget planning, and that's exactly what we're doing. The cornerstone of this new approach is a capital budgeting framework that distinguishes and enables the government to prioritize spending that stimulates public and private sector capital investment versus day-to-day operational spending. This will mean more transparent decision-making and more taxpayer dollars allocated to investment that will grow our economic potential. Going forward, the Government of Canada will also adopt a fall budget cycle, starting with Budget 2025. The fall timing before the main estimates, and I must say before the main estimates, will facilitate the oversight and study of public expenditure for parliamentarians, inherently making the process more transparent. It will also support effective financial planning for federal departments and agencies, provinces and territories, as well as Canadian businesses and organizations, allowing for more informed decision-making on where public funds will have the most impact. This updated budget cycle will more closely align with construction season and provide increased certainty and predictability for businesses and investors. Spring budgets often didn't allow projects to take the full advantage of the construction season. A fall budget cycle changes that, giving builders and investors a real head start. The new fall budget will be followed by a spring economic and fiscal update as the new fiscal year begins, as well as pre-budget consultations over the course of the summer, as we did this year. La tenue de ces consultations pendant
Holding these consultations during the summer will give us more time to develop budgets that better reflect the priorities.
And I'm happy to extend by 1 minute, or otherwise stand there if you want. So I was just saying, la tenue de ces consultations pendant
Holding these consultations during the summer will give more time to developing budgets that better reflect the priorities of Canadians, as did the recent consultation last July and August, which took place in 26 cities across the country.
We're in fact implementing recommendations made to the government by various parliamentary committees, including the Parliamentary Budget Officer. In conclusion, our government has a plan to build a new Canadian economy, the strongest economy in the G7, and one that works for everyone. C4 was an important first step in that plan, and Budget 2025 will be an historic next step. I look forward to releasing our full plan on November 4th with Budget 2025. Thank you for your indulgence, Madam Chair, and I look forward to the questions from my colleagues. Merci.
Great. Thank you so much, Minister Champagne. So we will now begin with our rounds of questioning. Mr. Halan, you have 6 minutes for the Conservatives.
Thank you, Chair. Minister, what are your fiscal anchors?
Madam Chair, and I'd like to say thank you to the member of the committee. It's a real pleasure to see you. We have been very clear during the campaign that we will be balancing the operating budget in the next 3 years.
That's your fiscal anchor?
That is a fiscal anchor that we have been talking about and that we put in the platform.
Are there more?
We said that there will be a declining deficit to GDP over the same period.
Okay, so the deficit to GDP ratio that you're claiming is supposed to decline, the PBO says that he doesn't think so. And he doesn't even think that you have fiscal anchors right now. Is he right?
I would say different parliamentary budget officers have had a different view, I would say, than the one you're referring to now. I would say, Madam Chair, Canadians should rejoice because Canada has a very strong fiscal position. We have the lowest debt to GDP ratio in the G7.
Minister,
we have the lowest deficit to GDP ratio in the G7.
Sticking on the deficit to GDP ratio,
countries in the G7
your
which has
fiscal to GDP ratio was supposed to be 1%. It's doubled right now. And you're saying that it's supposed to decline. It doesn't look like it's going to decline. You literally, according to the PBO, are going to have 80% higher deficits and the economy is shrinking. So how do you square that? How do you square having higher deficits, a shrinking economy, your deficit to GDP ratio is already double what you claimed it was supposed to be? How is it supposed to decline?
Madam Chair, I have more confidence in Canadians and the Canadian economy perhaps than my colleague. Canada has a very enviable fiscal position. When you look at the G7, Madam Chair, and I attend these meetings, I chair them, you would say that our colleagues would say that Canada has a very stable fiscal position. We have the means of our ambition, and we're going to seize that generational opportunity. Having the lowest debt to GDP ratio and the lowest deficit to GDP ratio in the G7, plus a AAA credit rating, I would argue, and I know you're the official critics for finance, so you would know that, that is a pretty enviable position. Only Germany has a AAA credit rating in the G7, and Canada is one of them. We have a very strong fiscal position.
Fastest shrinking economy in the G7, and saying that we would have the AAA credit rating is almost like a participation ribbon right now for Canadians waiting in food bank lines, because they're the ones who are suffering with your government spending. And again, you didn't answer the question specifically. You're claiming that the deficit to GDP ratio is going to be going down, but there's no specifics. Are you saying that in this fantasy budget that somehow the GDP is going to massively grow at the same time having deficits that are going to be 80% higher than what even Justin Trudeau had, which is surprising?
I think it's pretty offensive for Canadians who are listening this morning to your comments, because Canadians will be reminded that your government...
I'll correct you, Minister, that the PBO said that about your ratio. He said that your ratio is very alarming, stupefying, shocking, and unsustainable. That's what the PBO said. We agree. Canadians agree. Do you agree?
I would say there is Kevin Page said, and I quote, Madam Chair,
is the PBO lying?
Madam Chair, do you want me to answer? Otherwise, I'm happy to listen to your question.
It was a yes or no answer, Minister.
But if you want me to answer, if you just want to ask the question, and the answer, Canadians will form their judgment.
Yes, Mr. Turnbull.
Sure, I know that it's the informal practice at committee, because I've been on many committees, to give the minister at least as much time as it took the member to ask the question, at least. The minister wasn't even able to get the first word out.
On the point of order.
Mr. Kelly.
The minister ran my colleague's clock earlier in the round. I think it works itself out.
Okay,
Mr. Hillan, I'll just ask everyone to maintain a respectful atmosphere. Thank you.
Definitely. Okay, I don't see the minister will answer that, because we all believe the PBO in saying that the finances are unsustainable. Moving on, like you said in your statement, you want to make operational spending, whatever that is, and balance it in 3 years. The Mark Carney, the Prime Minister, tried this failed experiment in the UK last year. It failed horribly, and now you guys are trying to try the same accounting trick here in Canada. When at the end of the day, the bottom line is still the bottom line. I'll quote the PBO in what he's saying for your claims about splitting it between operating and capital costs. The PBO said, "We haven't seen a clear definition of what would fall into capital and would fall into operating." He further said about your operating budget that we currently don't have a definition of operating budget. He went on to say something very alarming. The bottom line of the government will not change, which means debt is still debt at the end of the day. It doesn't matter how many columns you try to present in front of Canadians and try to trick them. He went on to say the international public sector standards that everyone uses to measure the deficit and levels of debt will not change. The first reason that won't change is those are the accounting standards. The second reason is the ratings agencies won't let you change it. That's the first thing they're going to go to. And if they have a sniff that somehow there's a change in presentation, you bet your boots that we're going to be paying more for debt pretty quickly.
Everyone has an opinion about Canadian federal politics.
I know this place is where I am.
Check this out. Where's Randy, guys? Look up. Is he up there? You up there blowing a squirrel, Randy? So, we're gonna take a stroll up. So, what do you think Hey gang, Aaron right here, Canadian Looney. Hey gang, what's up? Just Aaron right here, Canadian Looney. Hey gang, Aaron right here, Canadian. Hey gang, what's up? Just Aaron right here, Canadian Looney. We have issues in Canada, right? Unless you're completely head in the sand, be aware of this. We've got a pretty great video here to show. Look how calm that is. So we're gonna walk out on the finger here. Hopefully it's not too slippery. But we do have some hope in this country. We've got so many great MPs from